Who would say I never live over there, I never drive over there, you know. I used to live right by the David Davis mansion, and there was a lot of people who would be afraid to drive to my house to come over, you know, after a certain time, you know, or if it was dark and things like that. So I think there's still this stigma that a lot of people have, not only with downtown but the west side. And unless we do something to fill that donut hole, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And it just can't be just do it once and then you're done. You know, like a cleanup day, you know, once a year. It has to be something that has to be very integrated.
Do you think that, like, ISU should take more, or, like, in Wesleyan should take more in part of that sustainable development, since we are such a big part of the community? And I know, like, that's why Uptown Normal has changed so much, is because, like, the students are, like, surrounded by it. And there's kind of, like, this disconnect between us and Bloomington because it is kind of, like, a drive away. Do you think that us as students should start, like, teachers should start, like, implementing more, like, partnerships with them?
I think that's one part of it. I think the biggest issue right now with the west side and downtown is a lack of leadership. And so I think really what needs to happen is leadership development and strong leadership that comes in and sets a leadership tone and sets a goal and then puts resources behind that. And you understand that not everyone's going to be happy. I think it also has to be a culture shift. I think the universities can help with that, but the problem usually with the universities is that students are only here for such a short amount of time, and they're not here during the summer or in the winter. So during those breaks, that's when a lot of things happen in town. The other potential issue with the university, and I think the universities have to be involved, but the other potential issue for the universities is that it starts coming off as a handout instead of a hand up. So think of the situation where we don't have any of our major universities, you know, the two universities or any of our community colleges really on the west side.
That's true.
And so what is there to really build up that infrastructure? So I think they could play an important role, but I think it really has to come from the community. And I kind of mentioned this, but it also has to be this cultural shift, this paradigm shift of how this area thinks of itself, is that there's a lot of situations where people think of change as bad and progress is bad, and really improvement could lead to us reconnecting with our past and our history, not forgetting those roots, but just embracing them and taking them to where they need to be. I think in all communities you find this idea of scarcity of resources, so that if I help you, that means something's being taken away from me. This community is a very giving community, so I personally don't believe that there is a scarcity of resources. I do think, though, that there are situations where people don't trust each other, don't communicate, and so that in itself, if you don't have those two things, it's really hard to collaborate and work together and then share those resources. You know, one of the most important things for me in regards to leadership, whether you're, you know, the mayor or city council person or executive director or president of a university or just someone just helping other families, is you have to be a strategic thinker. And that's one skill that I think at times we lack, especially on the west side, is like, what is the west side supposed to be in 10 years, right? Sometimes we always look back and say, remember the good old days, remember 30, 50 years ago what this was like, why can't it be like that, instead of thinking to what should this place be like in 30 or 50 years, and what's the path that will get us there. And so that's the piece that I think if people knew what that goal was, then they could work together to achieve whatever that is supposed to be.